Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. More than 10 days after Operation Sindoor was launched, more than a week after the ceasefire was announced, more details are emerging on how Pakistan tried to divide and attack India. They killed Hindus in Pahalgam and they tried to target Sikhs in Amritsar. The Indian Army says Pakistan tried to attack the Golden Temple. We will tell you what followed and decode the plot. Meanwhile, Indian agencies are busting a Pakistani spy ring. A YouTuber and 11 others have been arrested. In Pakistan, another Lashkar terrorist has been killed and another funeral has been held with a terrorist draped in their national flag. Also, more links between US President Donald Trump and Pakistan are emerging. Is he showing sympathy to them because of business deals? We'll tell you. The IMF swings into damage control mode, tightening loan rules for Pakistan. India restricts imports from Bangladesh. We will tell you why. How Pakistan's terror policy is bleeding its province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. How Israel has launched a new operation to take over Gaza. What's the update on the Russia-Ukraine talks and how alcohol consumption reduces because of high screen time? What is this theory? We'll discuss this. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Iran says it won't stop enriching uranium, but it is open to establishing a regional nuclear fuel consortium. Since April, Tehran and Washington have held 4 rounds of nuclear talks. The West has accused Iran of wanting to acquire atomic weapons, but Tehran insists that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. India's External Affairs Minister on a 6-day visit to the Netherlands, Denmark and Germany. S. Jaishankar is expected to highlight Pakistan's continued support to cross-border terrorism and brief European leaders on India's firm stance against it. This is Jaishankar's first foreign trip since India launched Operation Sindoor, which was in response to the Pahalgam terror attack. Britain and the European Union reach a landmark post-Brexit deal. Both sides agree to a new security and defence pact as well as easing customs checks on food and plants. The UK will also allow EU fishermen to access its waters for 12 years. The European Union is the UK's largest trading partner. China says it backs Denmark's sovereignty over Greenland. The Chinese foreign minister made the remark while meeting his Danish counterpart in Beijing. US President Trump has threatened to take over the Arctic island. During the meeting, Copenhagen objected to Beijing's support for Russia in the Ukraine war. Tanzania's opposition leader Tundu Lissu appears in court and vows to keep fighting. He is facing a treason charge that carries a potential death penalty. His party has been disqualified from the presidential polls after demanding electoral reform. And Joe Biden thanks people for their support following his cancer diagnosis. On Sunday, the former US president revealed that he is battling prostate cancer. The news sparked an outpouring of wishes, which included current President Trump and Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris.
घर में घुस कर मारेंगे।
The bullets may have stopped, but the fighting hasn't. That's the reality of wars today. Truth or not, the narrative battle continues. India won decisively on the battlefield. We are now looking to back that up with an outreach by making our case on the global stage. And what is Pakistan doing? Well, copying us. You want to know Pakistan's next move? Just look at India's current move, because chances are it will be the same. We will get to those copy-paste moves later, but first, let's look at some new information that has come in. We know that Pakistan targeted 15 Indian cities after Operation Sindoor. These were spread across the north and the west. Among them was Amritsar. Not the Amritsar cantonment, not any air defense system or military target, but the Golden Temple, the holiest place for Sikhs around the world. Pakistan tried to strike the Golden Temple. It was announced today by the Indian Army.
Knowing that Pak army does not have any legitimate targets, we anticipated that he will target Indian military installations, civilian targets, including religious places. Of these, Golden Temple appeared to be the most prominent. We also received credible intelligence that Golden Temple is a prime target, which we had brainstormed earlier. On 8th early morning, in the hours of darkness, Pakistan carried out a massive air assault with unmanned aerial weapons, primarily drones and long-range missiles. We were fully prepared since we had anticipated this, and our brave heart and alert army air defense gunners thwarted Pakistan Army's nefarious designs and shot down all drones and missiles targeted at Golden Temple, thus not allowing even a scratch to come on our holy Golden Temple.
Now, you may be confused by this move. After all, this is the Golden Temple. You strike that and you're declaring an all-out war on India. So why would Pakistan do that? Well, they would do it to divide India's society. This attempted strike did not happen in isolation, by the way. It was part of a series of moves. First, the Pahalgam terror attack, where only Hindus were hunted and killed. Then, the Pakistan military's press conference on May 10th, where they made some wild claims. Listen to this.
मैं आपको एक शॉकिंग खबर देना चाहता हूं। इंडिया ने अब से थोड़ी देर पहले 6 बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल आदमपुर से फायर किए हैं। इनमें से एक बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल आदमपुर में ही हिट किया है और बाकी 5 मिसाइल्स भारतीय पंजाब में अमृतसर के इलाके में हिट किए हैं।
Pakistan says India fired ballistic missiles at Amritsar, its own city. Again, the idea is quite clear. Attack Sikh sites, including the Golden Temple, shift the blame to India, and then turn Indian Sikhs against the military. And guess who is peddling this Pakistani narrative? Poor man's Bond villain, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. Let me quote his statement. This is what he said. Why are Sikhs the target? Modi's missiles kill Sikhs. Khalistan is the answer. I guess the mask has fallen. These Khalistanis do not care about Sikhs. All they care about is hurting India. And for that, they have openly sided with Pakistan. Thankfully, our military was on alert. They shot down almost all projectiles fired from the other side, including the missile aimed at the Golden Temple. But the danger is not over yet, because Pakistan is unlikely to give up. Missiles or not, they will try to divide India. Which brings us to our moves. What are we doing? India is planning an outreach blitz. It has created 7 multi-party delegations. Some are led by the ruling BJP's lawmakers, others are led by the opposition. Put together, these 7 delegations have 59 members of parliament. And their mission is quite clear: to take India's message to the world. Each delegation will travel to designated countries. Some will go to the US and Latin America, some to the Gulf Arab states, some to Southeast and East Asia, and some to Northern Africa. In total, 32 countries will be covered. The idea is to inform these countries about Pakistani terrorism, perhaps brief them on Operation Sindoor, because like I said, narratives matter. These MPs are being briefed by the government of India. Afterwards, they will head out into the world, most likely after May 23rd. Now, this decision was announced late on Friday by India. Guess what Pakistan did the very next day? They announced a similar multi-party delegation. It will be led by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, leader of Pakistan People's Party and the former foreign minister of the country. I'm sure he understands the gravity of the assignment. If not, at least the center of gravity. But jokes aside, this is pathetic. Pakistan has no strategy or playbook. They're simply copy-pasting India's moves. First, Prime Minister Modi travelled to the Adampur air base. The next day, Shehbaz Sharif visited the Pasroor cantonment. Modi had lethal Indian weapons in the backdrop. Sharif had banners. Days later, India announced its global outreach program, and sure enough, Pakistan followed suit. But I'm afraid copy-pasting won't help them. India's moves are a reflection of its polity and society. We are a thriving democracy. Hence, we are sending a multi-party delegation. With what authority is Pakistan doing this? Their most popular leader is in jail right now. If Shehbaz Sharif is serious, let him add Imran Khan to this delegation. But something tells me he won't. So my point is quite simple. India has the moral high ground here. We also have years of evidence against Pakistani terrorism. Now it's time to actively spread the message far and wide to turn this military victory into a narrative victory too. Like so many stories of our times, this one too begins with a ring, light and a camera. It features a woman named Jyoti Malhotra. She is from the state of Haryana. She is a YouTube influencer, a travel vlogger. She has 377,000 subscribers on YouTube, more than 100,000 followers on Instagram. Jyoti Malhotra has documented her journeys across the globe, from bustling cities to quiet mountain towns. But one destination stands out, and that is Pakistan. She's been there multiple times. Images of her trips have now gone viral. One of them shows her with Maryam Nawaz, the Chief Minister of Pakistan's Punjab province. Jyoti's last trip to Pakistan was in March this year. And now she's behind bars, arrested on suspicions of being a spy for Pakistan. Here's what the authorities are saying. Jyoti Malhotra was in touch with a Pakistani diplomat, an official in their High Commission in New Delhi, someone who was expelled after the Pahalgam attack. Investigators say Jyoti's trips were sponsored, that she was in touch with Pakistani officials, she shared sensitive information, and that she was being developed as an asset. She was being groomed by them. Her family calls these allegations preposterous. They say that she was only vlogging. That's video blogging. I'm sure more details will emerge as the investigation proceeds, but this case is just the tip of the iceberg. In the last few days, there have been at least 11 other arrests across 3 states. These are people who came from different walks of life: a businessman, a techie, a student, even a security guard, all connected by a single serious allegation: spying for Pakistan. Another key arrest is from the state of Uttar Pradesh. It was a businessman named Shehbaz. On paper, he ran cross-border trade, but investigators say he went far beyond commerce. He is said to have been an ISI point person. He helped them recruit people. He was also believed to be selling Indian currency and SIM cards to them. Then there's a postgraduate student. He was spying on Indian military installations. He passed sensitive details about the Patiala Air Force Station straight to Pakistan. One guy allegedly even developed an app. He made it to stay in touch with his Pakistani handlers. As we speak, more people are being rounded up. These arrests reveal a complex web of espionage. It's disturbing, but neither surprising nor new. Pakistan's ISI has long cast its net on Indian civilians. After all, that's what the agency was built to do. The Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI, was founded in 1948. Since then, it has operated like a state within a state. Over the decades, it has built a sprawling espionage network. It targets India's military infrastructure, its political fault lines, and increasingly, its digital spaces. The strategy is quite simple. Blend in. Do not rely on known assets. Use ordinary people, exploit their vulnerabilities, financial or otherwise, and use them as modes in a larger machine. It worked in the 1990s with cross-border operatives in Kashmir. It worked in the 2000s with double agents. In fact, in 2010, there was a case of Madhuri Gupta, an Indian Foreign Service officer. She was convicted of spying for Pakistan. And now the ISI seems to be turning to ordinary people. Between 2013 and 2016, India arrested 46 Pakistani spies, 46 spies in 3 years. They were arrested from across the country. And now a new round of arrests has begun. What does it tell you? Even when the battlefield looks silent, the battle is on. When it's not their terrorists, it's their soldiers. When it's not their soldiers, it's their spies. Some do it unwittingly, others know exactly what their mission is and for whom. Either way, it's a low visibility, high impact game. Use the unlikely, stay off the radar, keep it plausible, and do not leave a trace. That is how it works. And that's also why it's so hard to stop. Because the best spies do not look like spies, they look like you and me. And that is the real challenge. Pakistan's mask is slipping. Every day, more evidence comes to light. Let me show you the latest one. It's a set of pictures taken at a funeral, the funeral of a Lashkar terrorist. It's the same group that was behind the Pahalgam attack. Lashkar-e-Toiba, they killed 26 Indian civilians. Yesterday, one of Lashkar's commanders was killed. His name was Saifullah Khalid. He also goes by another name, Razaullah Nizamani Khalid. He was killed by 3 unknown gunmen in Sindh. Sindh is a province in southeast Pakistan. Saifullah Khalid's funeral was held there yesterday. And these pictures are from the same funeral. Khalid's coffin has been draped in the Pakistani flag. In most countries, this is an honor reserved for the top leaders of state and military. In Pakistan, it is an honor bestowed upon terrorists. They are given VIP funerals, they are celebrated like martyrs and national heroes. And so it was with Saifullah Khalid. Also, he was no ordinary terrorist. He operated the Lashkar's network in Nepal. He handled recruitment, logistics and money. One of his main jobs was to move terrorists, to get them across India's border with Nepal. He also orchestrated multiple attacks in India. In 2005, he planned a shooting. It happened at the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru. 1 person was killed in the attack, 4 others were injured. In 2006, the RSS headquarters in Nagpur was targeted. RSS stands for the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. It is the ideological parent of the BJP, which is India's ruling party. Khalid planned the attack on the RSS, but the plot was foiled. Then in 2008, Khalid targeted a CRPF camp. CRPF is the Central Reserve Police Force of India. One of its camps in Uttar Pradesh was hit. Uttar Pradesh is a North Indian state. 7 security personnel were killed in this attack. After this attack, Saifullah Khalid vanished. He was operating a Lashkar module from Nepal. Indian intelligence agencies exposed his network, so Khalid had to flee. He took refuge in Pakistan, and since then he had been out of the spotlight. Khalid vanished from the public eye, only to resurface this weekend when he was killed by gunmen and his funeral made headlines. As you can see in the pictures, there was a massive turnout. Reports say top leaders of the Lashkar-e-Toiba were present. One of the names doing the rounds is Faisal Nadeem. He is a Lashkar commander in Sindh, the Sindh province. Apparently, he attended the funeral. So we ask, what more proof does the world need? A designated terrorist honored on Pakistani soil with a national flag on his coffin in the presence of known terrorists. And this is not a one-off case. Last week, India told the world about another funeral. And you may have seen this picture. Indian diplomats have been highlighting this. That's Abdur Rauf, a senior leader of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. He led a funeral for terrorists killed by India in Operation Sindoor. On day 1 of our precision strikes on Pakistani terror camps. Abdur Rauf led the funeral prayers in Muridke, a city near Lahore. Muridke hosts the headquarters of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. And who stood by Rauf's side? You see Pakistani military officers dressed in uniform. Again, the coffins were draped in the Pakistani flag. As India pointed out, these terrorists were given state honors in Pakistan.
If only civilians, if any civilians were killed in these attacks, I wonder what message this picture actually sends to all of you. As far as we are concerned, the individuals eliminated at these facilities were terrorists. Giving terrorist state funerals may be a practice in Pakistan. Doesn't seem to make much sense to us.
Rauf is a close aide of Hafiz Saeed, the chief of Lashkar-e-Toiba and the mastermind of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. Hafiz Saeed is a UN-sanctioned terrorist. Rauf too was sanctioned by the United States in 2010. He raises funds for terrorist activities. His terror links are well documented, but Pakistan denies all of it. Their military calls Rauf a common family man. They even presented so-called proof to defend him. And it happened during a press conference. Pakistani officials shared personal details about this man, like his national identity number, his date of birth, his address in Lahore. They shared all of this in a press conference, but in doing so, Pakistan scored another self-goal because every detail they shared matched the US sanctions record. Pakistan ended up confirming the very thing that they were trying to deny. They exposed their own lies. Abdul Rauf is a terrorist, and Pakistan was caught protecting him. Which brings me to yet another question. What is the Financial Action Task Force waiting for? This is the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. It is a global terror financing watchdog. What more evidence do they need? Terrorists are not just hiding in Pakistan, they are being celebrated openly. They are being given state funerals. They are being defended by military officers. And when they're confronted, Islamabad spews all lies. Pakistan is not just a safe haven, it is a sponsor, a host, and a facilitator of terrorism. There is overwhelming evidence to support this. It is time for the FATF to take action. Whose side is Donald Trump on? A lot of you may have asked this question last week. Frankly, we were wondering too. Trump was doing his typical both-sidism. He equated India and Pakistan. He even called Pakistan a great country. I doubt even Pakistanis would do that. But now more information and dubious links are emerging, information that puts Donald Trump on Team Pakistan. Take a look at this report. It talks about a man named Gentry Beach. He is a hedge fund manager from Texas. More importantly, he is a close associate of Donald Trump Jr. That's the US president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr. Now, Beach and Trump Jr. are hunting buddies. Beach visited Islamabad in January this year, and he was hosted by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. A second meeting happened in February. Once again, Shehbaz Sharif hosted Gentry Beach for talks, this time at a summit in Dubai. Afterwards, Beach returned to the US, to Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, and he reportedly briefed the US president about his talks with the Pakistanis. Do you know what he said? He said that Pakistan was an amazing place, that there is potential for rare earth oil and real estate deals. Murky, isn't it? But the story does not end here. In late January, Beach also traveled to Dhaka, Bangladesh. He met interim ruler Mohammed Yunus. Again, the same script. Promises of massive investments and real estate deals. Then in April, Beach traveled to Turkey. He signed a joint deal for oil exploration. Clearly, this is a very powerful man, powerful and close to the Trump family. Did these business dealings influence Donald Trump's position? Is that why he's soft on Pakistan? Well, the evidence is mounting. Last week, we told you about a cryptocurrency deal, a deal between the Pakistan government and an American company. Pakistan's government signed an agreement with a crypto company. Guess who owns that company? US President Donald Trump's family. 60% of the firm is owned by Trump's family. And for the record, this deal was signed after the Pahalgam attack, so clearly the Trumps knew what was happening. And yet, they went ahead with the deal. And the ties do not end here. On Friday, Trump appointed new members to a religious advisory board. The US president appointed new members to a religious advisory board. Out of them, 2 names stand out. The first is Ismail Royer. In the 2000s, this man traveled to Pakistan and trained with the Lashkar-e-Toiba, the terror group. In 2003, he was charged with aiding the Lashkar-e-Toiba. And the worst part, Royer pleaded guilty. He was given a 20-year prison sentence. But after 13 years of serving jail time, he was released. He was released in the year 2017. And now he's on Donald Trump's religious advisory team. Let me repeat that for you. A convicted Lashkar terrorist is now US President Trump's religious advisor. That's the first name on the list. The second name is Shaykh Hamza Yusuf. He's basically a radical Islamist preacher. In 2016, Indian authorities filed a case against him. His speeches were radicalizing terror recruits. Now, both these men have been appointed by Donald Trump. One is a convicted terrorist, the other is a man who's wanted in India. Of course, the White House does not see it that way. They're calling these men preachers and Islamic writers. Some of Trump's own supporters cannot believe it. Like right-wing commentator Laura Loomer, she says the White House has elevated a Muslim Brotherhood jihadist. It's hard to argue with that. But the question is, what is Trump's game plan? Why is he doing all of this? Well, money is certainly at stake. Pakistan desperately needs foreign investments, and the US is clearly open to it. In April, Islamabad hosted a minerals forum. The idea was to urge foreign players to invest in Pakistan's natural resources. And among the attendees was an American delegation. Trump has already struck similar deals in Ukraine and Pakistan. In Pakistan, he has the added bonus of containing China's influence. You see, most of Pakistan's minerals are in Balochistan. China has pumped billions of dollars into this province. Yet there is a gap in funding and technology, one that Donald Trump is very much interested in. As for appointing terror suspects and convicts, are we really surprised? This is the same Trump who signed a deal with the Taliban. The Trump who met Syria's new president last week, a man who was designated as an Al-Qaeda terrorist only a few months ago. Donald Trump does not care about ideals or terrorism. All he's concerned about is money, both for himself and for the US government. And Pakistan's generals appear to have decoded that. They spent most of the last decade selling national resources to China. They could spend this decade selling it to the US. As far as India is concerned, there are only 2 options. Offer Trump a better deal or ignore him and go it alone. Speaking of American support to Pakistan, it is most evident at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. A lot of people call the IMF a lender of last resort, but in Pakistan's case, it is the only resort. The IMF has bailed out Pakistan a record 24 times. The latest bailout was last week after they carried out the Pahalgam attack, and in the middle of Operation Sindoor. As you would expect, Indians are not happy about this. And it's understandable why. Pakistan is a sponsor of terrorism. The IMF is a sponsor of Pakistan. So what does that make the IMF? Also a sponsor of terrorism. Some officials at the fund appear to finally understand this. On the 7th of May, they prepared a report for the IMF board. Let me quote parts of it. This is what the IMF's report said. Reputational risks could come from any perceived lack of even-handedness or if there was a perceived misuse of fund disbursements. So the IMF staff warned of it. They feared a perceived misuse of bailout funds by Pakistan. Yet the political leadership at IMF did not care. They decided to approve the latest bailout for Islamabad. But could the IMF be having second thoughts now? They cannot reject the loan now. Instead, they're tightening the conditions for the loan. A total of 11 conditions have been listed. For example, reforming taxes on agriculture, phasing out subsidies for industries, hiking electricity and gas rates. Such measures are called the bitter pill. They will hurt ordinary people and consumers, but they will bring more money into the Pakistani treasury. You have to feel for the people of Pakistan. Living in Pakistan is already a bitter pill. On top of that, the IMF is prescribing more treatment. The question is, why these tighter conditions? Is the IMF feeling remorse? Or are they just fed up with Pakistan? Ideally, it should be both. No responsible country or agency should be standing with Pakistan, especially not a funding agency like the IMF. India's defense minister made that clear last week.
इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड से आने वाले $1 बिलियन के बड़े हिस्से को टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को फंड करने में इस्तेमाल होगा, ऐसा मेरा मानना है। क्या यह इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड IMF द्वारा, जो कि एक इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, उसके द्वारा इनडायरेक्ट फंडिंग इसे नहीं माना जाएगा? मैं दुनिया के लोगों के सामने यह सवाल रखना चाहता हूं।
Unfortunately, this is nothing new. The IMF has been a tool of Western domination. In fact, both the IMF and the World Bank. And here's the biggest proof of it. The IMF is always headed by a European citizen. The World Bank is always headed by an American citizen. Yet these are supposed to be global groups. But if you look at their policies, one thing is quite clear. They don't benefit the world. They benefit the West. I've got some examples for you. In 2023, the IMF approved a bailout for Ukraine. They gave around $15 billion in the middle of a war to Ukraine. It was unprecedented. The IMF had to amend its laws to approve this loan. Another example is Argentina. They're called a serial offender by economists, Argentina. The IMF has bailed out Argentina 23 times. This country is also the IMF's largest debtor. Yet, the International Monetary Fund approved another bailout this year. It's worth around $20 billion. And fun fact, it was approved after a pro-US, anti-China president took over the country. A third example is Egypt. The regime has been accused of gross rights violations, yet it got a bailout in 2016 and then again in 2024. Do you know why? Because the West likes the Egyptian regime. They feel it's a bulwark against Islamic radicalism. And finally, you have Greece. The International Monetary Fund gave them a $145 billion loan in 2010, $145 billion. Again, the fund had to modify its rules for this bailout. Greece did not meet the criteria for this kind of loans. But the IMF went ahead anyway. Do you know why? Because Western banks had major exposure. If Greece collapsed, those banks would also feel the heat. And this trend is visible in other places too, like Argentina's previous bailouts in 2001 and 2018. American banks had a lot of the country's debt, so on cue, the bailout came. The truth is, the IMF works, like I said, for Western interests, for American interests. They want to prop up the regimes in Egypt and Ukraine, hence these countries get the bailouts. They want to protect American banks in Argentina and Greece, hence they got bailouts. And it's the same with Pakistan. Washington wants to prop up the regime in Islamabad. That is the only reason they keep getting loans. It's the classic definition of a broken system. Only a handful of countries like India have truly benefited from IMF bailouts. But they did so despite the system, not because of it. If the IMF is serious about its mission, it should help countries that need money, not terror sponsors and puppet regimes. Now let's talk about Bangladesh. It is feeling the heat from New Delhi. India has imposed new trade restrictions on Dhaka. They target a range of imports from Bangladesh, including garments, which is the country's biggest export. And India has now placed curbs on them. 4 key border checkpoints in northeast India have been closed to Dhaka. Why? Because Dhaka has been doing the same to some Indian goods. Also, the interim ruler, Muhammad Yunus's growing ties with China have not helped. He recently called northeastern India landlocked. He invited China to access Indian territory through Bangladesh, and that statement, along with a string of Chinese investments, has raised alarms in Delhi. So now India is sending a clear message. Trade ties come with boundaries, and Dhaka may have just crossed one. Our next report has more.
Some statements carry a cost. Mohammad Yunus is now paying the price.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters, they are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean for all this region. So this opens up a huge possibility. So this could be an extension of the Chinese economy.
Yunus made that statement in March during his visit to China. He urged China to use Bangladesh as a gateway, as an access point to India's northeast. This statement didn't go unnoticed in New Delhi. This weekend, India took action. The government announced a series of trade restrictions. Bangladeshi exports will now face curbs. They won't have access to all the land ports. A range of imports have been impacted by this order. From ready-made garments, that's the largest export of Bangladesh and a vital source of dollar inflows, to plastic items and wooden furniture. Even carbonated drinks, bakery, confectionery, cotton yarn and dyes. Its exporters will now lose access to 4 key land routes: Tripura, Assam, Meghalaya and Mizoram, all located in India's northeast. These gateways are now closed to Bangladesh. New Delhi isn't just closing its doors, it's matching Bangladesh measure for measure. Dhaka had earlier restricted Indian yarn shipments. They allowed imports only through sea routes. Now India has responded. Several imports from Bangladesh face the same restrictions now. They can only use the seaport entry. This follows Dhaka's moves to tighten the scrutiny of Indian imports. Reports say Indian trucks face more checks and aggressive inspection in Bangladesh. So, in a way, India is deploying the strategy of reciprocity, a tit-for-tat move triggered by Dhaka's own restrictions. These curbs can hurt the economy of Bangladesh. It's already under strain. Dhaka needs more foreign exchange. Its books are under pressure. India's curbs could impact $770 million worth of exports. That's nearly 42% of Bangladesh's shipments by land to India. But India has legitimate reason to be concerned. Under Yunus, China has made deeper inroads in Bangladesh. In March, the chief advisor visited Beijing and signed multiple deals. This includes at least 8 MOUs. New investments were announced. This included a Chinese economic zone in Chittagong and the modernization of the Mongla port, the second largest seaport of Bangladesh. China is also showing new interest in the Teesta River project. Earlier, New Delhi was assured exclusivity. Now Beijing is back at the table. Yunus also walked away with significant financial commitments. China committed around $2 billion in loans, grants and investments. The message for New Delhi was loud and clear. Yunus is pitting China against India. And now that New Delhi has responded, Bangladesh wants to have a dialogue with India. An advisor of Yunus has spoken. He says Dhaka wants to resolve trade issues with New Delhi. But the tone from New Delhi has shifted. This is no longer just about trucks or tariffs. India is drawing a red line. Trade and provocations cannot go together. Yunus may call northeastern India landlocked, but it's New Delhi that has now locked him out.
Back to Pakistan, looks like the ghosts of its old bargains are coming home to roost. Take Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a province nestled in Pakistan's northwest and ravaged by violence. We'll start with some data. It's from this year, 2025. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has reported nearly 300 terror attacks. That's more than 2 attacks every single day this year, and we are not halfway through the year. North Waziristan leads the list with 53 attacks. Dera Ismail Khan has seen 31 and Peshawar, which is the provincial capital, has had 13. Also, this is not a new phenomenon. In 2023, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa reported 651 attacks. The number rose to 732 in 2024, and so far this year, it's already touching 300. The numbers are grim, yes, but the story they tell is grimmer. This is not a resurgence of terror. This is a reckoning. For years, Pakistan has nurtured terror groups. It has used terrorism as state policy. It has reared snakes in its backyard, and now those snakes are slithering into its living room. Let me pull up a map for you. Look at where Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is located. It borders Afghanistan to the west and north. In the 1990s, Pakistan armed and trained the Taliban. In the 2000s, it raised groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba to bleed India. When these Frankensteins needed space to grow, Pakistan handed them the tribal belt, especially Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The terrorists used it as a playground. The cost was always going to be national, though. It just took a while for the invoice to arrive. Behind most of the attacks is the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. It's a largely Pashtun terror group in Pakistan. It has anywhere between 30,000 to 35,000 members. The TTP has ties with the Afghan Taliban. They're sort of like ideological cousins. So TTP terrorists have set up base near the Afghan border. They pop up, launch an attack, and then return. The TTP's fight is against the Pakistani state. They want to capture power, and they want to run the country of Pakistan based on Sharia. Remember, in 2021, the Taliban came to power in Kabul. That further emboldened the TTP, and it showed in the rising attacks in Pakistan. In 2024, last year, they witnessed a 40% surge in terror attacks. More than 900 attacks were recorded. The TTP was responsible for more than half of these. They killed more than 560 people. 96% of their attacks are in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. 67% of the attacks targeted military and security personnel. 16% targeted civilians. The most common were armed attacks. Bombings have also increased in recent years. And what is Pakistan doing about this? It is blaming Kabul. It is asking the Taliban regime in Kabul to control the TTP, but the Taliban have refused. And Pakistan is hurt. So much so that General Asim Munir was heard whining. He said the Taliban do not listen to us. Now I get why he's so hurt. You raised them, you funded them, and now they're not answering your calls. Well, I guess that's realpolitik. Then Pakistan used the United Nations Security Council to build pressure on Kabul. They asked Afghanistan to rein in the terrorists. Again, no luck. Last December, Islamabad conducted air raids in Afghanistan. The strikes targeted TTP hideouts. The Taliban condemned the attack. There was a massive fallout, but there's no stopping the attacks. And this is a lesson for Pakistan. It created monsters and tried to play God. It made a case for good and bad terrorists. Terrorists that bled India were good. Terrorists that struck Pakistan were bad. But you see, terrorism does not work that way. It doesn't stay in a box. It doesn't respect borders. More importantly, it doesn't have a master. Right now, the flames lit by Pakistan are engulfing Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And if they do not course correct, it could soon engulf the whole country. Let's turn to the conflict in Gaza. It is escalating. Israel has launched a new ground offensive. It is called Gideon's Chariots. The offensive began on Sunday. Israel has struck both northern and southern parts of the Gaza Strip. The airstrikes have killed at least 140 people. The operation has continued today with at least 50 people dead. This comes even as Israel and Hamas are having indirect ceasefire talks in Qatar. Meanwhile, international pressure is mounting on Israel, even from its key backer, US President Donald Trump. Our next report brings you more.
Israel has launched an extensive ground operation in Gaza. And it's called Gideon's Chariots in reference to a biblical warrior.
The IDF has opened the military operation Gideon's Chariots according to the state cabinet's order. We are moving to the next phase of the war. During the operation, we will intensify the
The ground offensive began on Sunday along with an intense air campaign. In the south, strikes hit the city of Khan Yunis. In the north, the airstrikes hit several sites, including the Jabalia refugee camp and the town of Beit Lahia, where an Indonesian hospital was rendered out of service. This is the last remaining functioning medical facility in northern Gaza. Overnight and through Sunday, the airstrikes killed at least 140 people, including children. The operation has continued today with an additional toll of at least 50 deaths.
The killing was not limited to children and the elderly, but rather the matter increased to killing inside hospitals. But Israel Defense Forces say they struck more than 160 terror targets. In fact, in the run-up to the operation, Israel ramped up intense airstrikes last week. In a strike on the grounds of a hospital in Khan Yunis, reports say the IDF killed Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar. He became the de facto commander of Hamas after his brother Yahya was killed in October 2024. So what's behind this large-scale offensive? First, advancing Israel's plan to move farther into the enclave. And secondly, to mount pressure on Hamas to release hostages.
This is part of defeating Hamas, and parallel with the tremendous military pressure, our massive entry, to essentially take over all of Gaza and strip Hamas of all ability to plunder humanitarian aid. This is the war and victory plan.
Just as it began the operation, the Israeli government said that it would allow food into Gaza. Rather, quote-unquote, a basic quantity of food. This announcement came almost 11 weeks after Israel halted the entry of all food, medicine, fuel and humanitarian aid into the Strip. But international pressure has been mounting for Netanyahu to lift the blockade.
In Gaza, the situation of Palestinians is beyond description, beyond atrocious and beyond inhumane. A policy of siege and starvation makes a mockery of international law. The blockade against humanitarian aid must end immediately.
There's also pressure from a key backer, US President Donald Trump. Last week, he was on a West Asia trip where he skipped Israel. Earlier this month, Trump said that he wanted to end the brutal war in Gaza. He also bypassed Israel while negotiating with Hamas for the release of an Israeli-American hostage. Trump has denied that Israel had been sidelined, but he acknowledges the need to avert a looming famine in Gaza.
We're going to see what happens. I think a lot of good things are going to happen over the next month, and we're going to see. We have to help also out the Palestinians. You know, a lot of people are starving on Gaza, so we have to look at both sides.
Netanyahu says this reversal in policy is to avoid a starvation crisis which would jeopardize Israel's new military offensive. This comes even as Israel and Hamas are contemplating a ceasefire. Indirect talks are underway in Qatar's capital Doha, where the focus is on securing a 2-month truce with Hamas freeing about half the living hostages. In return, Israel would release hundreds of Palestinians from its jail and end the total blockade on Gaza. Netanyahu seems to be using the carrot and stick approach when it comes to Gaza. But the question is, will it yield any result and bring some relief in this 19-month conflict?
It's the most anticipated phone call of this week. US President Donald Trump on one side, Russian President Vladimir Putin on the other. The call is currently underway and on the agenda is peace. Trump is first calling Putin. Then he will dial Ukrainian President Zelensky. The details are not out yet, but the hope is that there will be a ceasefire to announce. The Ukraine war, as you would know, broke out in 2022. It's been over 3 years. Trump wants the war to end immediately. In fact, he promised that it will end it on day one in office, and he seems to be getting frustrated because it's been more than 3 months. The White House says he is weary of both sides.
The president has made it clear his goal is to see a ceasefire and to see this conflict come to an end. And he's grown weary and frustrated with both sides of the conflict.
Right now, this call could have 3 outcomes. 1, Putin agrees to a ceasefire and so does Zelensky. Trump announces it and claims credit. 2, Putin disagrees, but he sets up a meeting between himself and Trump. Earlier, Trump claimed that the only thing stopping a ceasefire is a meeting.
We have to meet. He and I will meet. I think we'll solve it, or maybe not, but at least we'll know. And if we don't solve it, it'll be very interesting.
Third scenario, Putin does not agree to a ceasefire and presents his list of conditions he needs to end the war. No one knows what happens then, but Ukraine is highly skeptical. It says the Russian president is just dragging his feet, that this call will yield nothing. That is Kiev's assessment. Which brings us to Washington. Donald Trump has long promised to end the war in Ukraine. Like I said, he promised to do it on day one in office. The very day he returned to the White House, he said he would end the war. It's been months. The war is still raging. In February, American officials met separately with both Russia and Ukraine. The result was a temporary deal, one that focused on Black Sea safety. But it did not hold. Both sides accused each other of breaching the terms. And now that deal has expired. So what exactly is blocking a ceasefire right now? Well, Russia blames Ukraine's red lines. Putin claims any truce must lead to a quote-unquote lasting peace. But what does that mean? What is a lasting peace? Moscow says it wants to address the root causes of the war first.
We have enough strength and resources to bring what was started in 2022 to its logical conclusion with the result needed by Russia. This result is the elimination of the causes that led to this crisis in Ukraine, the creation of conditions for long-term sustainable peace, and ensuring the security of the Russian state.
Ukraine sees it differently. It accuses Russia of stalling while the fighting continues. Kiev is pushing for a 2-stage plan. First, a quick ceasefire, maybe for a month, then negotiations on a long-term peace deal.
Our number one priority is a full, unconditional and honest ceasefire. This must happen immediately to stop the killing and create a solid basis for diplomacy.
Meanwhile, efforts to end the war are gathering momentum. Last week, Turkey stepped in to host direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. The talks were initiated by Putin himself. They were originally scheduled for last Thursday. Zelensky agreed to attend, but he set one condition. Putin had to be in the room. That did not happen. The Kremlin opted to send a delegation instead, led by a former culture minister. By then, Zelensky had already landed in Ankara, but he too chose to skip the talks in person. In his place, Ukraine's defense minister took the lead. The meeting was pushed to Friday. It failed to produce a ceasefire. The only breakthrough was a deal on prisoner exchange. Meanwhile, Europe too is conducting high-level meetings. It is rallying for Putin to accept a ceasefire.
I think I'm even certain that President Donald Trump, concerned about the credibility of the United States of America, will react because, in fact, the ceasefire proposal, the proposal for a high-level meeting, are American proposals. They are important. They cannot receive such a response. We will continue to work hard to ensure Ukraine's resistance and to ensure security guarantees exist the day peace is signed.
But even as peace talks gain traction, the war shows no sign of slowing. On Sunday, Russia unleashed a massive drone strike on Ukraine, the largest since the war began. Ukrainian officials say Moscow launched 273 drones. Kiev also claims that Russia was preparing to test fire an intercontinental ballistic missile, a show of force meant to scare the West. But so far, there's no confirmation that the launch took place, and Moscow is yet to respond. So where does that leave us? The call has been made, the world is watching. 3 years of bloodshed, diplomacy and deadlock now rest on this one conversation. Will Putin agree to peace? Will Zelensky compromise? Or will this be just another missed opportunity in a war that refuses to end? For now, we don't have answers, just a phone call and a wait. Now let's talk about drinking alcohol. It's a habit that is as old as civilization, but it seems to be fading slowly. The decline began in the mid-2000s, and over the past few years, it has accelerated. The decline has accelerated. According to experts, you can blame Gen Z for this, or those born between 1997 and 2012. Despite their myriad problems, Gen Z is not seeking comfort in alcohol, apparently. And if they are, it is much lesser than the previous generations. And this has contributed to a global decline in alcohol sales. But what explains this shift? According to one of the world's top brewers, apparently, it is higher screen time. Here's a report.
Alcohol is the new tobacco. Alcohol bottles need warning labels. Try dry January. If you don't live under a rock, you have probably heard these statements before. Do you know the result? Alcohol consumption has been falling globally. According to the World Health Organization, there's been a steady fall since the mid-2000s. Average per capita alcohol consumption has dropped from 5.7 liters in 2010 to 5.5 liters in 2019. Last year, global alcohol sales declined by 1%. If you zoom in, you will see that some types of alcohol are especially in the red. Like wine, last year, global wine consumption hit its lowest level in decades. Global sales fell by 3.3% compared to 2023. They reached about 214 million hectoliters. 1 hectoliter is 100 liters. So 214 million hectoliters may seem like a good number, but it is the lowest in more than 60 years. Simply put, it has not been a good decade for alcohol. And a big contributor to this trend is Gen Z. This includes people born from 1997 to 2012. They are hitting snooze on wine o'clock, drinking much lesser than the previous generations, and hurting alcohol sales. Question is, why is this happening? Apparently, screen time is to blame. We aren't saying this. Atsushi Katsuki is. He is one of the world's biggest brewers. The top boss of Japan's Asahi. He says that before the rise of digital platforms, alcohol used to occupy a much bigger share of people's entertainment and joy. Now, gaming, video streaming, and social media are gulping down much of this so-called share of enjoyment and driving abstinence among youngsters. This argument adds another dimension to the debate of alcohol consumption, which is mostly focused on health concerns, fueling the decline. But Katsuki believes that there is little scientific basis to them. He says that certain studies show health benefits of alcohol. Sure, previous research has shown the benefits, like linking the consumption of red wine to lower risk of heart disease. But now we know that many of these studies were funded by the alcohol industry, and such research has been debunked. Instead, credible research says that alcohol consumption is linked to liver disease, heart disease, cancer, and mental health conditions. People now know that there is no safe level of drinking any alcohol. This may be grim news for the world's drinks companies, but the advantages of the growing awareness are unparalleled. As alcohol consumption has decreased between 2010 and 2019, so has the number of deaths related to it, by as much as 20% per 100,000 people globally. There has been a steady increase in anti-alcohol policies as well. Almost all countries implement alcohol excise taxes. Regulators are pushing for mandatory tobacco-style health warnings. Ireland will be the first country to introduce this measure from next year, thanks to widespread knowledge and ease of access to it. Youngsters are more aware about the risks of alcohol. This is a turning point for alcohol consumption. And as for big alcohol, maybe they will need a drink to process this.
The last 2 weeks have been damaging for Pakistan. Their carefully constructed military propaganda is falling apart. But if you're a Pakistani, do not worry. Your government has a new weapon up its sleeve. Forget the Shaheen missile or the Fateh rocket. This is the real weapon. I'm talking about Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Like we said, he's been chosen to lead Pakistan's outreach delegation. You'll soon see him in Western capitals and foreign news channels, everywhere except the Prime Minister's chair. Frankly, Bilawal should write a thank you note to Khwaja Asif. That's the Defence Minister of Pakistan. Asif was like a decoy weapon in war. He attracted all the criticism and memes during Operation Sindoor. Meanwhile, Bilawal skipped under the radar. Unfortunately for him, not anymore.
कौन रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं, चोर रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं, अगर उनमें हिम्मत होता तो वो दिन में आके ऐलाने जंग करते हैं।
नर्म मुलायम मीठा पसंद करे इसे हर कोई, संगीता रीटा नीटा अनीता।
कौन रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं, चोर रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं, बुज़दिल रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं।
ये देखो, ये अभी देखा देखी पे उतर है।
रोसेश, हौसला रखो स्वीटी।
कैसे रखो हौसला मोहब्बा?
नहीं झुकूंगा। आप लोग मेरा साथ दें या ना दें, मगर कचरा खेलेगा।
Now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. 2 killed as a Mexican Navy ship crashes into New York's Brooklyn Bridge. Pope Leo urges unity for a divided church at the inaugural Mass, and humanoid robots walk alongside their teams on the red carpet in Shanghai. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1943, US President Franklin D. Roosevelt and UK Prime Minister Winston Churchill planned a cross-channel invasion during the Second World War. It became known as the D-Day landings. It was initially scheduled for May 1st, but bad weather and other delays pushed it to June 6th. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
The Prime Minister hands the President a letter from His Majesty King George. United States Destroyer McDougal.
What is going on? Oh, what? Insane.
Eccolo.
At Firstpost, we are choosing to hold on to accuracy. That means we won't always be first. We may not get you your breaking alert. But what you will get is what we owe you. And that is the truth. Verified, checked and cross-checked. We rely on sources and verified ones. After all, that's what separates a journalist from a loudspeaker. But sometimes even we miss a beat. And when we do, we will tell you. Like yesterday, we ran visuals from a registered news agency. That visual turned out to be fake. So we are taking accountability. And from now on, we will cite the source of every visual, every picture, every video that you see on Firstpost will have a source mentioned. That is our commitment to you. We will wait, we will verify, we will ask again, and only then will we tell you. No noise, no panic, just the facts. Because right now, that is what the country needs most.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.